From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. I hope everyone's stress level is lower. And I don't mean that because, it's a hectic time of year, right? The holidays are extremely stressful in so many ways, right? End of year, you're trying to get all your work done. You've also got all the pressure of shopping for the holidays, getting ready for Christmas, family coming in or traveling somewhere. If you've got kids, then they're, out of school, I think, today or tomorrow. And so you've got to think, what are we going to do with the kids during all this time and all of that? It's extremely, extremely stressful. So one, I hope you're taking a deep breath, just enjoying the ride, because life is so darn short that these little moments make it all so much better. And these are the memories we take with us, and the things we see in the last of moments on this planet is those moments with our loved ones. So enjoy them, take the time, breathe in. It's all right. We're practitioners. We know how to handle stress. But take a load off. I've been talking to a lot of people over the last 24 hours. A lot of them are stressed. Take a load off. We've got a busy show for all of y'all today. A lot of really interesting stories, a lot of great ways to help you become a more practical practitioner, I'll say. Join me for a coffee cup cheers here. Got my double espresso this morning, whatever you're drinking. Put it in the show notes, and we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and so many others. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. For all y'all tuning in, thank you. Let's go ahead and get started with some data breach news this morning. And due to popular request, let's go ahead and play this.
There is a security breach.
Xfinity, the cable provider and one of the largest telecoms in the country, is informing customers that their information may have been compromised in a cyber attack that involved the exploitation of CitrixBleed. CitrixBleed is CVE 2023-4966. So it's a critical vulnerability affecting NetScaler ADC and gateway appliances. Malicious actors can exploit the flaw to hijack sessions, which could give them access to targeted organizations. Patches were announced nearly 2 months ago on October 10th. The vulnerability has been exploited as a 0-day since at least August. Mass exploitation of CitrixBleed was underway a few weeks after the patch was announced, and reports started emerging of its use in attacks aimed at major companies. In Xfinity's case, the telecom and smart home solution provider said it promptly patched and mitigated the vulnerability within its system. What's promptly, however, discovered on October 25th during a routine exercise that CitrixBleed had been exploited against the systems, with attackers having access between October 16th and 19th. So that lets you know that they patched it after the 19th. Potentially, they were doing some sort of routine IOC and TTP type of exercise. What are we seeing out there? How are threat actors taking advantage of CitrixBleed? And does this exist in our environment? They probably did, and then they saw the activity between the October 16th and 19th. So patch was released on the 10th. They likely patched it between the 20th to the 25th in that time frame. So about 10 days. That's not bad, right? For a company the size of Xfinity to be able to do a patch like that, it takes you about 2 to 3 days to test it, and then another time to get it through change management, get it scheduled, get it patched up, right? Even if it's a 0-day, 10 days, not too shabby. I think, that's, if they did it on the 20th and not too shabby, they did it the 24th, again, not too shabby. 2 weeks later, obviously would like to do it within 24 hours, but if you don't understand enterprise architecture, if you don't understand enterprise infrastructure, you can't just take systems offline to patch them sometimes. You've got to get buy-in from the business. You've got to get everyone lined up. You've got to have a window to do it. And there's things scheduled that could also be critical to the business functionality. There's a lot of mitigating factors. So, I know some of the comments here are going to be, if they only, you don't know, this isn't a bad response time, by the way. And it took them 6 days to get in there and do this. So nonetheless, but by the way, this is a great story to kind of talk about it within your organization. Like, look what happened here. This is why we should potentially be looking at these 0 days a lot differently. Information like name, contact details, date of birth, the last 4 digits of the social security number, and security questions and answers may have been stolen, although that's not confirmed yet. Xfinity is notifying customers, requiring them to reset their password. The company is also advising them to ensure that MFA is enabled on their account. So we'll see how this pans out. In another attack on VF Corp, which owns some of the largest apparel and footwear brands like North Face, Timberland, Vans, and Dickies, and so many others. VF Corp, a company that owns and operates these guys, have reported that they've been hit by a ransomware attack that included the theft of sensitive corporate and personal data. The company has not provided details on the stolen data or whether third-party customer data was exposed. They're working on to bring the impacted portions of its IT systems back online and implement workarounds for certain offline operations with the aim of reducing disruption to its ability to serve its retail and brand e-commerce consumers and wholesale customers at the most sensitive time of the year, by the way. And here's one thing. And if CISOs, if you're not doing this, if you're a practitioner that reports to the board or you report to someone in business and you're a publicly traded company, they're going to do a ransomware attack at the worst time right now, Christmas time, when people are really shopping, especially with the kind of economy we've had. We know that sales are down in so many places. We know that people aren't spending the same amount of money as they did in years past because of the current economic situation in the country. If they're going to go after your stock, they know that that's going to impact it, and they might have already had a short order in there. We saw Hamas do that on October 7th against the Israeli stock market, where some people were aware of the fact that a Hamas attack was coming and started shorting the Israeli stock market, which at the time was booming, right? Preparing for the October 7th attack. And we know that because they were actually planning to do it in April. And if y'all remember, in April of this year, I was in Israel with my family. This October 7th attack was actually scheduled for April while we were in Israel. It just so happened that the IDF got some intel, beefed up their defenses, and nothing happened. So they pushed it out to October. But even in April, they were already shorting the stock. And so one way to know if you're about to face any sort of attack is look at how many short orders are on your stock. I guarantee you someone is shorting these guys. I guarantee it. They're hoping that this is what happens. The Denver, Colorado-based company noted that the full scope, nature, and impact of the incident is not yet known and cautioned that it's reasonably likely to continue to have material impact on business operations until they're fully recovered. VF Corporation is one of the largest apparel, footwear, and accessory companies, sells products in over 100 countries. They have a revenue about 11.6 billion with 35,000 employees around the world and 1,200 owned retail stores. Shares of the company are trading down 9%. Again, they short the stock, so even if you don't pay them, they're making money. Pay attention, y'all. The SEC, instead of making useless rules, should be investigating this, because this, my friends, is how you catch the bad guys. Mr. Cooper is now notifying that 14.7 million customers were impacted by the recent cyber attack that was identified on October 31st. They're now coming out with the number of customers and former customers that may have been impacted because of the cyber attack on Mr. Cooper, one of the largest mortgage companies in the country. In a letter submitted to impacted individuals, a copy of which was submitted to the Maine Attorney General's office, they say that the compromised information includes names, addresses, date of birth, phone numbers, social security numbers, and bank account numbers. Now, that one is significant, folks. Bank account numbers. That's your data. So there's a few things you want to do there. You either want to close your bank account, reopen it. Some banks, by the way, have security in place if you notify them, meaning if you call them and let them know. The bigger banks specifically, also a lot of the smaller banks do this because they don't want to take the financial hit on the fraud. You can say, I haven't authorized any new ACHs. Any new ACH that comes in, you can essentially lock it down to no new ACHs in the next 90 to 120, 150 days. Kind of take time. I personally would shut down my account and open a new one and get a new account number, simply because you don't want your old account number out there. They will try to do pulls out of those. We've seen that fraud happen before in my 15 years in financial services. I can tell you, very, very common. People go, well, how do I protect my bank account? You switch bank accounts. It's a pain in the tail. I know. for many folks, but some banks make it really easy on their customers because they have the right technology in play. Talk to your bank if you're one of the victims of this specific cyber attack. The FBI is warning about the player ransomware striking around 300 organizations. These guys are known for double-extortion model encrypting systems after exfiltrating data, impacting a wide range of businesses and critical infrastructure organizations in North America, South America, Europe, and Australia, according to authorities. Play emerged in 2022. They're exploiting security flaws in Microsoft Exchange servers CVEs 2022 41040, 410082, or Fortinet appliances 2018 13379er and 2020 12812. And it's worth pointing out that the ransomware attacks are increasingly exploiting vulnerabilities rather than using phishing emails as an initial infection vector, jumping from nearly zero in the second half to almost a third of the first half of 2023, according to Corvus, the cybersecurity insurance firm. And these guys have firsthand knowledge of what we see out there. So I take what they have to say really more than anyone else's. Ransomware attacks are orchestrated by these groups are characterized by the use of public and bespoke tools like AdFind to run AD queries, Jimmer, IOBit, and PowerTool to disable EDR and antivirus software, and they use Grispa to enumerate network information for collecting information about backup software and remote administration tools on the machines. They also use Cobalt Strike, System BC, and Mimikatz for post exploitation. So this alert coming from the FBI is updating a bulletin on the group, which is known to do this kind of stuff. And so keep an eye out for them and check out this alert. Microsoft is discovering critical RCE flaw in the Perforce Helix Core servers. 4 vulnerabilities, one of which is critical, has been discovered in the Perforce Helix Core Server, a source code management platform widely used in gaming, government, military, and technology. Microsoft analysts discovered the flaw during a security review of the product, which the company's game development studios use, and responsibly reported them to Perforce in August of 2023. 4 different CVEs have been issued. The highest one is CVE 2023-45849er with a CVSS score of 9.8. It's an unauthenticated remote code execution as local systems. The other CVEs, all 2023-5759er, 35767, 45319er. 2 of those, the latter 2, are unauthenticated DDoS via remote command, and the other one is an unauthenticated DDoS via RPC header abuse. The most dangerous of these, obviously, is CVE 2023-45849er, and it allows unauthenticated attackers to execute code from local systems. High privileged Windows OS account reserved for system functions. This account level can access local resources, system files, modify registries, and a whole lot more. The vulnerability arises from the server's mishandling of the user BG task RPC command in its default configuration. So there's that. Protection recommendations, apart from downloading the newest software version, is updating third-party software, restrict access using VPN or IP allow list, use TLS certificates with a proxy for user validation, log all access to the Perforce server, set up crash alerts for IT and security team, and use network segmentation. That's all coming from there. Iranian attackers are using Muddy C2Go in Telecom across Africa. The semantic threat hunter team, part of Broadcom, is tracking the activity under the name Seed Worm, which is tracked under the monikers of Mango Sandstorm, or formerly Mercury, or Static Kitten, because kittens are Iranians. This activity has been active since at least 2017. Muddy Water is assessed to be affiliated with Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security. They primarily single out entities in the Middle East, but these attacks are actually in Africa. And the latest set of intrusions took place in November of this year, have been found to rely on Simple Help and Venom Proxy alongside a custom keylogger and other publicly available tools. Attack chains managed by the groups have a track record of weaponizing phishing emails and known vulnerabilities. These guys typically operate in the espionage space on behalf of the Iranians, as they have their eyes now on causing a lot of unrest in Africa, especially in Sudan. While everyone's eyes are on Israel and Gaza right now, they're forgetting a lot of other things, including what's happening in the Russia and the Ukraine, and a bunch of explosions happening in Iran yesterday. Multiple explosions, one at their space facility, essentially the rocket facility in the middle of Tehran. that one is significant. So you're seeing a lot of different things happening in Iran. And Iran's still getting a lot of money. Biden just gave him just last month an additional $10 billion. So they're using that money to really cause unrest strategically. We see that with what they're doing with the Houthi rebels that are backed by Iran and supplied by Iran in Yemen and in the Red Sea, disrupting maritime commerce essentially there specifically. And then what we're seeing in Africa, in Sudan right now, in Ethiopia, and Somalia, that's all related to Iran, y'all. And that all has impact. So if you're trying to connect the dots, that's how you connect those dots. And our final story of the day, Checkpoint Software is in an SEC settlement talks in connection with a SolarWinds probe. This is related to the Orion hack in 2020. Apparently, Checkpoint said it had cooperated with the SEC inquiries related to the SolarWinds Orion vulnerability, according to a December 5th filing with the SEC. Checkpoint voluntarily provided documents and other information advising the agency of its access to its software. The company said they had limited testing environment, didn't have access to sensitive data, customer information, code, or anything else. The company is in talks about whether this should have been disclosed in their annual report. Any payment it may need to make under the agreement is not expected to have any sort of material impact, according to the company. The agency in October, which filed charges against SolarWinds CISO Tim Brown, who was the VP of security in 2020, alleging that they had misled investors about the company's capabilities. The SEC has previously sent a Wells notice to SolarWinds in connection with the investigation. Checkpoint said that any payment to the SEC would not have any material impact on their financial results, operation, or condition. The spokesperson for Checkpoint declined to elaborate on the disclosures, said that the talks may or may not result in a settlement. The company is also saying that there's no guarantee, but it's actually very fascinating to see this, because why is Checkpoint under investigation by the SEC? Is the SEC thinking that Checkpoint knew or is hiding data from their investigation? That's going to be very, very interesting, and that's going to have broader impact on a lot of cybersecurity partners in the globe as they watch this. This one flying under the radar, but has critical impact on what the SEC is investigating Checkpoint for, and what the discussions are, and what that's going to look like. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back with a whole lot more tomorrow, right here live at 9 a.m. Eastern with all the latest and greatest. Thank you for tuning in. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.